Mark 1. Let's start off with an easy 10%. Welcome to Cause We're Nerds, where we talk about movies and comics and video games and sometimes board games too. I'm your host, my name's Caleb, and with me is my brother Jacob.
Hey.
Today we're talking about Pokemon, cause they're really the best.
Pokemon
Is what you're gonna hear. We're gonna talk in your ear.
Pokemon.
Oh, Detective Pikachu, is it worth a watch or two?
Pokemon.
It's really here. The movie I've waited for years. Does it stack up or does it suck? Pokemon. Gotta watch them all. Gotta watch them all. Cause we're nerds. Alright, I just want to give everybody a disclaimer real quick. We are not professional singers. If that wasn't already painfully obvious.
Caleb, speak for yourself. I thought that was pretty good. In fact, I've been talking to a agent about a record deal.
Oh, very, very nice. What was his name?
Pika.
Pika. Interesting. Is he from America? Is it what's
No.
What agency is he with, Jacob? Tell me a little bit about this guy. How'd you meet him?
Okay. Well, see, I saw him online, obviously, through the agent website that you go through. You know, I need an agent.net, obviously.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it seems totally legit.
I'm very experienced with that site.
Oh, of course. And so I was asking him, I was like, man, where do you walk? And he said, well, I walk a little here, I walk a little there. It's a little south of the Sino region, the Sino region, And so I was like, oh, so like the Kanto region. And he was like, I mean, kind of, a little bit south of Africa. I was like, okay, well, me and my brother, let me send this over. He listened to it. He said, you know what?
Package up that mixtape for him.
Yeah, exactly. And I gave it to him. He said when he opened it, little file popped out of the envelope. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure we didn't pack a Charmander in there, which means that our mixtape is file, Caleb.
In all seriousness, we just had some fun. We spent way too much time working on that.
Way too long.
I mean, I don't know. What did we spend? Like an hour and a half recording it?
Oh, easily an hour.
And then I spent like maybe 2 hours editing it because it wasn't good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still not great.
Also, disclaimer in case you didn't realize, yes, that was Caleb on both the acapella and the bass.
No. I take no credit. I do not want this on my resume.
That was Caleb on the acapella and bass. I was only on the Pokemon.
Don't you mean treble and bass?
Treble and bass. I was only on the... Shut up. I was only on the, Pokemon, Gotta Catch 'Em All, and Hey, which, I mean, I thought the Hey was pretty good. I mean, I wasn't singing, I was kind of just saying it.
Yeah.
But, in other news of disclaimers, my allergies are kicking my butt today, so...
yes.
If you hear me sniffling or Caleb, because I know allergies in Georgia are pretty bad, that's why. Because pollen sucks.
Yeah, my allergies went away and they came back this week. Like my left eye, like in the afternoon only, it'll start getting like watery and stuff. And then last night, man, I had to take medicine to sleep because I was getting all stuffy.
Oh man, dude, I woke up the other day and I breathed in the air hurt my throat. Like, my throat felt swollen, and I thought I had strep throat for like a few hours, and it lasted a few days, but it slowly, wasn't as bad. It decreased in pain, but I hate this time of the year. It's the worst.
Man. But you know what makes this time of the year better, Jacob?
The fact that I'm not in school?
The fact that you're not in school, and that leaves you time to go watch more movies like Detective Pikachu. That's what we're here to talk about today. Man, Detective Pikachu, the first live-action Pokemon movie since the series debuted back in 93, I think in Japan, maybe?
That's all you, man. I don't remember when it was. And you definitely already did an episode on this. I should know because I listened to that episode.
Yeah, I think it was like 95 in the US. Anyway, since the 90s when it came out. And, let's see, 96. 96 is when it first came out. So I was off by a couple of years.
Oh.
So it has been 23 years since the series has come and gone. And it's had countless animated movies. It's had several anime TV shows. It's had multiple games, card games, board games, Tamagotchi, you name it. There has been Pokemon for it, except for live action. But now is the time. It is here. And we'll be talking about that today. But before we get into that, Jacob, I thought it only appropriate that we once again reintroduce our listeners to our experience with the franchise.
Okay.
That means you.
Oh. Okay, well, I was not as much of a fan of Pokemon growing up as Caleb was. I did not play any of the video games. However, I did collect the cards for a few years, and I did play them with my friends. I did watch whenever you think of Pokemon, the typical cartoon with Ash that you think of, early 2000s, maybe late 90s, so somewhere around there. I did watch that cartoon. I love that cartoon. Team Rocket, always the best. So that's really been my only encounter with this franchise. I like the franchise. It was just something that I didn't happen to grasp onto as a kid. However, I did enjoy it a lot. And, yeah, I enjoyed this movie, because even though I didn't, grasp it as a kid as much, it still had those callbacks to when I was a kid.
Definitely. Cool. So, man, I have been trying to catch them all since the late 90s, early 2000s. The first thing that I remember being introduced to was Pokemon Gold. That said, I'm pretty sure that I already was familiar with the franchise at that point, so probably watching the TV show in the 90s. And I have played several of the games, many of the games. As I've said before, we play them every year in my office at work. Not literally in the office, but the guys in the office play it.
That's what he wants you to think.
Right. Have I played any of the spin-off games? I might have played some of the spin-off games. I used to collect the cards. I was super into Pokemon as a kid. I got away from it and I came kind of back to it as an adult, as you do. And, man, I'm a pretty big fan of this franchise. I have been hoping for specifically a more realistic video game, but always in the back of my head, a movie. And I never thought it was going to happen. And then they announced it and I thought, what? Why are you doing Detective Pikachu? Which is one of the spin-off games, by the way, if you didn't know.
I did not know that. I knew Detective Pikachu was a thing, but I didn't know from where.
Yeah, they made a spin-off game called Detective Pikachu several years ago. It came out on the DS, so it was completely different.
Okay. So I was also going to add, I completely forgot, I don't know how. I also play Pokemon Go, obviously. I've been playing Pokemon Go for about...
Didn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I am still playing it. So... I played it when everybody played it, and then I kind of stopped playing it when everybody stopped playing it. And then I got back into it within the past 8 months, and I've been playing it. Yeah, and I've been playing it pretty advantageously. I think that's the right word.
I don't know if that's the right word.
I don't know if that is a word.
That is a word? I don't know if it's the word.
Well, let's say it's a word and just keep on rolling. So... and then obviously, I would say the only other, and this, I don't even include this, is having the Pokemon in Smash Bros. I mean, that is technically that franchise is involved.
I think that definitely helps keep it alive.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, I'm with you, Caleb. When I heard they were going to do a Pokemon movie, I was like, oh, that's really awesome. That's super cool. And then I heard it was Detective Pikachu, and I went, not as awesome as previously thought.
Yeah.
don't know how it's going to work. I was very, very skeptical. I remember talking to you about this, and I'm pretty sure you were the one that told me a Pokemon movie was coming out, and then you told me it was Detective Pikachu, and I was like, A, what exactly is that? And then you told me what it was, and I was like, B, what is that? Like, I was very confused. But it's yeah, I mean, we'll get into it. Let's get into it.
So, I actually have been thinking a lot about this movie lately, and if you remember back when we talked about Alita, I made a bold claim that I believe that manga and anime movies are going to be the next big thing. I don't know if that's, well, it's obviously not this year, but it might be next year, the year after. At some point, it is going to overtake superhero movies as the dominant force. And Alita was part of my argument with that because it was such a good movie. And the other big thing that hinged on that was this movie. And I think that doing Detective Pikachu first is actually really smart. The reason why is because traditionally, as everybody knows, video game movies have been really terrible, have not been well received. Ever since the Super Mario Brothers movie, things have just gone downhill for video game movie for video game adaptations. And by doing a spin-off, doing with Detective Pikachu, I think it gives them a little bit of freedom. If they were to do the originals, Red and Blue, or any of the mainline series, and they screwed it up, they probably would never do another one again.
True. Very true.
However, if they do Detective Pikachu and it screws up, well, it's kind of a side thing, so they kind of have license to go back to the drawing board, fix what was broken, and try it again without there being too much disdain for it, since it would be kind of a different direction for the series. Or if it was successful, they could piggyback on that and make more movies. So I think it was a really smart decision.
Yeah, and I think also that if people liked Detective Pikachu, it's such an idea that's kind of out there from what we've seen, and yes, it is Pokemon, and it introduces you to the world, but at the same time, it's like you said, it's not exactly the main canon material, not the bulk of Pokemon. Mm-hmm. So if you can get a fan base started to get rolling with this Detective Pikachu, then they could see that, yes, with all the canon stories, they could easily make a huge profit off of this. So I completely agree, and I think without just lightly easing into it, but no spoilers or anything, when I heard Ryan Reynolds was gonna be Detective Pikachu, I was like, well, okay, that could be interesting, because in my head, I didn't really picture Ryan Reynolds being Pikachu, if that makes sense. Like,
I don't think anyone did, Jacob.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, I don't know how that's going to work. But when the trailer started coming out, I was like, okay, I'm on board. I can see this. And then from the first or second trailer, I was very excited for this movie.
Yeah, I was a bit apprehensive with Ryan Reynolds as well. I think in the video game, he's got a very traditional British accent. Think like Sherlock Holmes. That's kind of what it's based on. And so hearing that he was going to do this, I wasn't sure how that was going to work out. We'll get to him specifically in the movie, but I also think that doing Detective Pikachu was smart because it is that side story. You could even change some core pieces of Pokemon a little bit and people would be more receptive to it, you know? So anyway, I think that was smart. How I saw this movie. I saw this movie opening night, Thursday night, and it did not have reserved seating. It's the first time I've seen a movie in quite a while that did not have reserved seating, so I had to show up early. I got there 30 or 40 minutes early, and I actually had to stand in line to see this movie. There was a line, which I was very surprised about, to be honest. And there was only one theater showing this movie, and we walked in, and it was, I think, the smallest theater in the entire complex. Like, it only sat maybe 100 people. Mm-hmm. That said, it was absolutely packed. People just kept walking in. I think by the time the movie finally started, there was maybe 2 seats left in the entire place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in fact, there was, the way the theater was set up, is you know how you go into a theater, you turn around and you walk up the stairs.
Yes.
In most theaters, the part directly behind the stairs is more stairs to go up higher. In this theater, it wasn't because it was so small. There were actually chairs behind it. And because of the wall, the safety wall they put there not to fall over the stairs, people couldn't see. So there's a couple people that actually stood the entire time to watch this movie.
Wow. Okay. Don't think I would have done that, but okay.
Yeah, pretty interesting. How'd you see it?
Okay, well, I was gonna see it Thursday night. And then I decided that I didn't want to see it Thursday night.
Boo!
So I went out with friends, and...
Boo! Who needs friends? Pokemon are your friends.
You're right. I should have known. And at this point, I wasn't... For some reason, I was thinking you had told me, that Zach was gonna be on this week. I was like, okay. And then you texted me, Friday night or Saturday morning. You texted me Saturday morning. You were like, hey, how's Detective Pikachu? And I was like, haven't seen it. And you said, I was like, what? And you were like, well, we're recording. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is how my Saturday morning went. I woke up at 11:30. Yes.
I wish I could do that.
Yes, that's late. And yes, I am a college student. So yes, it does make sense. So I woke up at like 11:30, left at 12. I got up, took a super quick shower, ate some oatmeal, left at 12, got to the theater at 12:20, and the movie started at 12:30. So within an hour of waking up, I went, So it's about, it's afternoon on a Saturday. There were lots of calls at the theater, so I was like, dang it, it's gonna be jam-packed. It really wasn't. I mean, my theater probably had, it was about a decent size at the old rave, Caleb. So, what do you say? About 200, 300 people could fit in there?
Yeah, maybe more.
Maybe more. Let's just say 300. I would say there was maybe 75 people in there. Maybe.
Okay.
It wasn't that full. But that being said, it still was, 12:30 on a Saturday is not early. However, typically around here, I feel like, people go to movies more during the night. From 4 on, I feel like the movie theater was really jam-packed.
Mm-hmm.
So 12:30 was kind of an odd time. So, even though there was only 75, that's not exactly bad.
Okay, Jacob, let's get into it. Why don't you give us a quick intro to the story for those people that haven't seen it yet?
Okay, so are we just going into spoilers, or...
No. No spoilers. No spoilers.
No spoilers. Okay, so getting jumped into this...
No spoilers now. We will clearly mark it when there will be spoilers.
So, I can say anything that's in the trailers, right?
Yeah, just, use your judgment.
Okay, so, without spoiling anything, so basically, this is the Pokemon world, right? There's this kid in this, Pokemon world where, something happens, and, he's introduced to Detective Pikachu. This kid previously, didn't have much encounter with Pokemon as much, and so you see his and Detective Pikachu's relationship, go up and down, throughout the movie, which is really cool, and you get to see them work together to achieve a goal that has to do with the kid's family. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty basic, but it gives you a good idea of what it is.
So what did you think, Jacob, overall? Did you have fun? Was it good? Did you hate it?
I enjoyed it. There were definitely specific parts I could pick out that I did not enjoy. But there's also parts that I can pick out that I thought were fantastic. So, I would say this movie's kind of a average movie for me. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I would go back and see it again. I definitely wouldn't see it again in theaters. But I might watch it again if it was on like Netflix or something. Maybe. Actually, I'd probably put it on for like background noise.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd actually sit down and watch it again.
Okay.
But I did enjoy it, yeah.
Interesting. I thought this movie was a lot of fun. I basically had a smile on my face the entire time. Like, no joke. I just thought it was really creative and inventive in how they brought the world to life. I think the very best thing about this movie, The thing that has it going for the most is the world that they have crafted and the actual translation of the Pokemon themselves.
I agree.
That said, not everything is good. The plot of the movie is pretty basic. I mean, it's a pretty paint-by-the-numbers plot. I don't think that there's anything that... There's some developments towards the end that are a little bit more interesting, but overall, you know, it's very much for kids. It's probably way more complex than any of the other stories in any of the video games, but still, those stories aren't crazy either.
Yeah, I don't know. There's not much about this I can say in non-spoilers.
Really?
Yeah, I
feel like I have a lot to say because I think this is going to be a movie that people don't just rush out and see. They're going to wait to see what people think of it.
Okay. Well, then let me try to voice my opinions without selecting specific things. Then, I thought that this movie is funny. This is a funny movie.
I agree.
I wouldn't go as far to say it's a comedy. But it does have its comedic parts.
Okay.
It's however, at the same time, it's also very much an action movie. It has a lot of good action that include the Pokemon, and I think for the most part that looked really, really good. And I agree with Caleb how this world that we're being introduced to that we haven't seen in a movie franchise yet is actually very believable. The way that they kind of encounter things and the way that they explain what the Pokemon kind of are and why they're there and just things like that. It's very believable to me. Almost as if like it was just another continent.
Yeah. Which is actually part of how they kind of sell this. That's not really a spoiler, but they sell it as a place that's completely separate from the rest of the world.
Which makes it even more believable than if they were to say, you know, oh, it's just like New York or something, you know.
Right, and this is not set in our world either.
No. But yeah, so I really liked those. I will say, like what Caleb said, the plot is very, very basic, and it's not even that the plot is basic that bothers me. What bothers me is that there are some specific elements used in the film to push the plot along that make a basic plot even worse than just a basic plot. It's very painstaking because you as a viewer, kind of already knew what was happening. And then they just used these certain elements because they wanted to have, you know, maybe a longer action sequence or maybe some more jokes in there. So they were running out of time to move the plot on. So it's like they specifically had to state what was happening. And I don't like when movies do that.
Okay, we're going to circle back around to that in spoilers because I'm really curious what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, well, I was just thinking that, you know, we talked about the world, and I think that this movie, and one of the main differences that you can tell with this one versus other video game adaptations is this movie was made with love. This movie was made by people who love the franchise, who know the franchise, and who appreciate the franchise for what it is. And it is so packed. I mean, it's in the trailers. When you get to the city for the first time, it is insane the amount of stuff that is in every single frame. And it's all more or less accurate to the source material.
Yeah, I will say that's something that I really did enjoy in this movie. A movie that was contradicting to how this movie was done, I thought was like Assassin's Creed, for example. The way that they kind of took some freedom with stuff here and there and, you know, going into the past and stuff like that. Wasn't exactly from the source material, and they changed a little bit, and some viewers were mad at that. Now, this is... I didn't really see anything that was just changed a lot. I mean, you're more knowledgeable about the Pokemon universe, but I didn't see anything and think, wow, they changed that. That's kind of weird, or wow, that was a weird choice. If you're talking about just the source material.
Yeah, no, I didn't see anything that really stood out to me as being changed. I mean, everything felt really good. I mean, for the most part, the CGI also looked really good. There's a lot of creatures in here. You can tell towards the end of the movie that they made maybe 20 or 30 Pokemon because some of them keep showing up again. And you're like, oh, I would have thought something else would be there. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. The Pokemon, I will say, don't necessarily always look real. Like, they're at that certain level of CG where it's believable enough to accept it, but you still know very obviously, oh, that's not actually standing there. It doesn't necessarily look like it's actually standing there, even though it's convincing you enough not to complain about it.
The movie that I thought about was kind of like Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's kind of a good comparison.
Yeah, I just, like, you obviously know it's not there by looking at it because you can tell it's animated and they look different than humans. However, it still looks really good.
Now, some things that didn't necessarily work for me is there are some dramatic scenes in here, and some of them don't work. I think the lead, Justice Smith, is really good in what he does in this movie, which I didn't get that from the trailers. From the trailers, he seemed not good at all. I really liked him. However, the girl that's in this movie, at least her introduction, I really didn't like. Looking back on it, I feel like they might have pushed that over the edge on purpose. Like it was supposed to be kind of cartoony. I'm not exactly sure. She kind of mellows out a bit as the movie goes on, and I like her better towards the end.
Sorry, I definitely just muted my mic because I was dying for a second. Sorry. I did not want you guys to hear that. Wow. Allergies. I love them. Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Caleb. I also think there's some relationships in here that were not used to the full extent that they could have been used.
I mean, there's not very many relationships. There's not very many human characters in this movie.
Yeah, well, not even... I'll say not even necessary relationships between humans.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just think there's some relationships overall that they really could have not necessarily fleshed out, but used some more. Now, there are some relationships that are used very, very well. Like you said, there's not that many human-to-human relationships, but there are some that they use very well. And then there's some others that they kind of introduce characters, and you think they're going to have a bigger part, and then they really don't. And it's almost like the character was kind of wasted, in my opinion.
I see why you would think that, but I think that for this movie, it makes sense, for at least how they did it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I go back and forth with that. That's one of my least complaints about this movie. That's just something that was very minor that I only thought about after, pondering over the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not something that stuck out to me necessarily during the movie.
The movie is a bit long. I think that there are some moments that drag just a little bit that they could have maybe trimmed out, or maybe those are some of the dramatic moments that don't work as well for me. So you do get that length a little bit. And then the thing that is kind of funny that bothered me maybe the most is that I get it, it's a movie, but they keep explaining how Pokemon work, like even to the basic degree. And I feel like most people know, like some of it you need to explain. But for me, really knowing like how evolution works and stuff like that, I didn't need them to keep explaining it. So I don't know if they over-explained it or if I just over-know what they were explaining.
No, they definitely explain the same thing about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, and that's pretty normal for something that's new to audiences, but I would think that Pokemon is so ubiquitous that you don't really need to, but maybe that's an incorrect assumption.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I feel as if my generation, I know, is not as closely tied with Pokemon as older generations were. And so I know, talking to my friends, sometimes, I talk about Pokemon, and yes, here or there, I may get like a diehard fan. Here or there, I'll get someone that knows what it is. But for the most part, people know that it's a card game and that they had a TV show, but they don't know what it is.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
And so, especially like for Kaylee's generation, Kaylee's 16, people, below, it's weird to say generation. I mean, we're almost in the same generation, but like people younger than me, I'm 20. I feel as if Pokemon's not as huge of a deal, as it was, unless you were part of that Pokemon Go kind of craze. So I feel like, yeah, they needed to describe it. I think 5 or 6 is a bit excessive. I think they could have stuck with 3, maybe 4, because they do explain it in different ways. It's not, word for word the same, but you do realize that they are saying the same thing, and they don't really add on to it each time. It's just the same.
Yeah. What did you end up thinking of Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu?
Oh, I really liked him.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, a lot of people keep asking me, is it just Deadpool as Pikachu? Sorta. I mean, there is a lot of that because Ryan Reynolds really is Deadpool. Like, the way he plays Deadpool is kind of just him. And so you're always going to get that with him when he goes into a new role, to a certain extent. And it is jokey and funny, but I don't feel like it's over the top the way Deadpool is.
No, yeah, I agree. It's very believable. It's very interesting not knowing about Detective Pikachu and going into this movie, because I knew about, Pikachu that you think about, in the shows and stuff, and I wouldn't think they have the same personality. So I didn't really know what to expect going into the movie exactly, but the way that they do it and the relationship between Detective Pikachu and the main character, it really, really works with each other. And so I was a really big fan of him being Pikachu.
Yeah, I think it worked really well. I think it was a smart move for this movie. I will say the Pokemon themselves throughout the entire movie just felt smarter than I imagined them when I was playing the games. In the games, and I guess even the anime to a certain extent, I kind of saw most of them as just animals. Like, there were a few that were a little bit smarter, kind of like Pikachu, and some of them can kind of understand what you want them to do, but I really thought they were more like animals, and this movie kind of takes that a step further, and most of them are more like really sentient creatures that really understand what's going on, even to the point where they can, like, direct traffic and things.
Yeah, which brings on a whole nother thing that I really want to talk about in spoilers, because it kind of talks about what you and Zach talked about in your Pokemon podcast episode.
Okay. I mean, for them being smarter than I imagined, like, there's precedent for that in the games. Like, there's Rhyhorn and Machop moving company, so it makes sense. I guess I just didn't make that connection playing the game, so it was a little shocking to me at first.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Overall, I think this was a really great start to a franchise that could have been very difficult to pull off. I think they did a fantastic job. It's been doing really well so far in the theaters. There's been a really good response to it. I definitely think this is the start to a Pokemon cinematic universe, which I'm very excited for.
Yeah, I definitely could see this. Is it going to break, the top charts, like in-game and stuff? No. But I do think it is a step in the right direction and an opening to a new franchise that people are really going to like.
All right, guys. We're going to go into spoilers now. Look! A wild spoiler appears!
Yeah, so if you don't want to accidentally peek at a true spoiler... Wow, that was really pushed. I felt like Zach. Then you should elect a buzz out of here, right? Right?
No.
Guys, get out of here if you haven't seen the movie. This is not a good... Yeah, don't listen to this next part if you haven't seen the movie.
Okay. So, I want to talk about your cryptic stuff that you've been mentioning.
Okay. Okay, so... Which thing?
Let's start with Ryan Reynolds.
Okay.
You said there was a thing that you want to get to.
A thing? No, I don't think I said a thing with Ryan Reynolds.
Okay, well then just pick something I don't remember.
Okay. When I was talking about the plot being pushed, right, to have more time for action and jokes, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The specific scene I'm talking about is when they are in the laboratory and they're having the hologram. It's the main act. What's the main actor's name again? I mean, in the movie character.
Oh, in the movie? I don't
Do you
remember.
know? Okay, well, I'm just gonna say the main character. He's in the laboratory after the explosion, and he's watching the hologram of the past, and it felt so forced. Wow, those words sound so similar. It felt very forced because at first, wow. Yeah, see, it's very hard. At first it was really flowing nicely. I liked it, but I hated it. Took me out of the movie when it showed the doctor, and the doctor just explicitly said, "Oh, we need this and this. Thank you so much, Mr. Whatever, for coming and getting this." Like, he was there. Everybody in that room would have known what was going on, and it just felt very, very pushed. Like, it was like, "Hey, audience members, don't forget about this." And they didn't even, like, try to sneak it in. And I don't know if
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know if that's just me, which apparently it is, because you're about to say you didn't catch that. But it just felt so like, oh, hey, we haven't reminded the audience in 10 minutes of what the plot is. Let's go ahead and remind them.
Yeah, just disagree. Disagree wildly, actually.
Okay.
I thought that scene flowed really well. I thought it was really necessary. It really seemed integrated in a way that was natural. And there was new information, a lot of new information that they gave in that scene that we had not heard before that was central to the plot.
Okay, no, so I agree. That's not my problem. I like this scene. I like the hologram and everything. Why does it keep saying viruses on my computer? Anyways, I liked the scene and everything, but the problem I had was what the main doctor said. Yes, you found out that they hired the detective, to find Mewtwo, but it just wasn't. I don't know. I don't know what it was. Maybe I need to watch it again for that part specifically. But I remember watching the movie, and when she was talking, it took me out of the movie physically. Like, I looked around.
What do you mean it physically took you out of the movie?
Okay.
You're not physically in the movie, Jacob.
Okay, sorry.
This isn't Spider-Man Homecoming.
Okay. So, when, like, you're watching a movie and something happens, you're like, well, that's kind of weird.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I looked around the theater to see if anybody else, like, was, I don't know, like, looking around. Like, I don't know. And I don't know why that's such a big point to me, but it is. So I wanted to throw it out. So consider it thrown.
So, while we're talking about Mewtwo in that area, it was a really cool reveal in, I think, the second trailer that Mewtwo was going to be in this movie. I was not really sure how that was going to work. And watching this movie, I got major vibes of the first animated movie that they did. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
So I thought this was Pokemon the first movie. I thought that
Yep.
Between the mind control stuff that they were talking about and Mewtwo here, I thought Mewtwo was going to get out at the end. I thought he was going to mind control people's Pokemon, and I thought we were going to have basically an alternate version of what that movie was. And in fact, that's not what we get. This is not even where they created Mewtwo, which is, for the most of the movie, is what I thought it was. This is where they brought him, and there's a really interesting line in the movie where they say he was created 20 years ago in the Kanto region. 20 years ago is roughly when the first Pokemon game came out, and that made me ask, is this set in a version of the Pokemon game world? Like, is there a red character running around somewhere, and did his creation follow either the anime or the video games? And are we going to get that story at some point?
Interesting. I did not think that much into it. I thought that Mewtwo was a very interesting choice to use for this film, because Mewtwo, to me, is such a popular character. And so, to use him and there's so many cool things that you could do with him. So to use him in a movie that could potentially not do well at all, I feel like is a really big gamble. And so when I saw that second trailer, I was like, wow, this movie already looked good. And I was interested, but now they're introducing, Mewtwo. And I kind of thought for a while, I was like, is it going to be worth it? Or are they just going to waste a really valuable character / Pokemon in a movie that may not bode very well, where they can't use Mewtwo for the rest of the franchise?
Well, I think they used him to draw people in because he is such a popular character. I mean, behind Pikachu, he's kind of, I would think, the face of the franchise, at least for people of my generation who grew up with it.
Okay, so were you surprised to see him in the trailer?
I was surprised to see him in the trailer, yeah. I mean, once I saw him in the trailer, I knew he was in the movie. So I was surprised to see him at the very beginning of the movie. I didn't know he was going to play as big a role in the setup as he did. I thought he was going to end up being kind of like the big bad of the movie, and I was curious how that was going to work.
Okay.
But I actually really like what they did with him.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like, okay. Let's go ahead and talk about this. I like the plot in some parts. We talked about how it was kind of a basic plot, which, I mean, it is. You know, typical guy wants to take over, and I mean, it's just a very basic plot. However, there were a few things that surprised me. Okay?
I agree.
I definitely thought that the partner's cop, that the cop's partner, the main character's dad's partner, was going to end up being a bad guy.
Ken Watanabe.
Yes. I definitely thought he was going to be a bad guy.
Yeah, I never got that sense.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think it's because I've seen so many movies where, you know, a close friend of whatever happened to the person ends up being bad. And he just seemed very... Every single time you saw him, he was kind of in a dark atmosphere.
Well, it's a noir setting.
No, I mean, I get it, and I understand why. But I was like, hey, you know, maybe he's not the big bad, but, you know, maybe he's a part of it. So that was the first thing that surprised me. Second thing that surprised me, I really thought well, first off, I mean, let's just throw out the big one. The dad and Detective Pikachu. Like, what?
Yeah, I did not see that reveal coming at all.
So, the dad was inside Detective Pikachu, right? Like Mewtwo was doing with other people.
Right.
Yeah. So, now here's a thought. Is that why the main character could understand Pikachu?
Yeah, I think that's the explanation. I think that maybe the mist also did something, potentially, but it's the combination of him being related, that being his dad, and potentially the mist that allowed him to understand him.
Okay, because that was one thing I had an issue with. Whenever he could first understand him, I was like, oh, maybe he can understand Pokemon. But then he couldn't understand any other Pokemon. So I was like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was the mist, but then there's that whole underground fight scene, and at the very end where the mist is everywhere, and it doesn't really show that anybody else can understand Pokemon. So I was like, well, I don't think it can be the mist. And then when it revealed his dad, I was like, oh, well, maybe it's because he was like inside him, but I was like, other people still couldn't understand.
Yeah.
So I was kind of confused.
I think it's the combination, and I think it was really smart to explain why he could understand him.
Yeah. No, and I did not see that coming at all. Like, my mouth dropped just because I was so surprised. I didn't even think about that. I thought about several things. I thought maybe his dad was a character that we had already saw before. Or maybe his dad, I thought somehow maybe his dad was like a part of Mewtwo. Not in the same sense, but like, I don't know. But I wasn't expecting that.
Something that, while we're on that topic, I did figure out was that the dad was going to be Ryan Reynolds. Like, about a quarter to a half of the way into the movie, I realized that they were not showing his face, and I thought, the dad's going to end up being Ryan Reynolds.
See, I was expecting that's maybe why he was a character we were already introduced to, or we were gonna be introduced to. Yeah. Anyways, and then, I don't know why, for some reason, part of me thought they were gonna introduce Professor Oak in here.
Well, there's a sign in here that says Oak. When they're
is there?
When they're at the main character's like house, like his dad's place, there's a part where it starts up top and pans down from the outside, and there's a neon sign that says Oak.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, I actually thought they were going to introduce him when they showed that. I thought that was like the sign of his lab, but it was just an Easter egg.
That's cool. It's really funny because every like old person I saw in this film, I was like, oh, maybe. Like when they first introduced, you know, the guy that created the city, when he first popped up on the TV, I was like, no.
You know who would make a good Professor Oak?
Who?
Pierce Brosnan.
Who is that?
I think, Jacob.
I'm not good with actors' names.
He was one of the James Bonds.
One of the James Bonds.
I feel like he's got the look. All right, we're not going to spend time on this. Anyway.
Yeah, so I was kind of surprised that they didn't introduce him. Oh, no, you know who I think would make a good Professor Oak? I don't know why. I feel like Tommy Lee Jones can make a good Professor Oak.
No, too grumpy, too old.
Okay, fair enough. Moving on. So yes. I did not like the goal at the beginning at all. In the staircase.
I agree. On the staircase, it felt super forced.
Yeah, she came down and she was acting like that, and I was like, this acting is awful. I was like, I hate this. I was really upset because I thought the whole rest of the movie was going to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very discouraged. And then you never see that from her again.
You get a little of it later on. That's why I almost think that she was doing it on purpose, like putting it on for him.
I was just so worried, Caleb. I can't even tell you. I was like, it's like I can't even walk out of the movie because we're talking about it on the podcast.
No, it wasn't that bad.
It was just it was very cringy. It was very cringy. Okay, so that was another one of my things. The flashback we already talked about. The Pokemon, like we've already said, looked really, really good. Even when they were like wet. Like when Pikachu gets wet after falling in the water, he still looks really, really good.
Yeah, Pikachu, Psyduck, and Mewtwo, and maybe Charizard are probably the best looking Pokemon in this movie.
I would agree. I would also add Trico in there. I thought Trico looked really good. Not Trico, Green Ninja.
Oh, yes. Okay. I was like, well, I mean, I guess.
Yeah, no, Green Ninja looked really good.
Yeah, Greninja.
Yeah. And then, I mean, there's Cubone.
Yeah, Cubone also looked really good. I think part of what helps Pikachu look really good is the fur just looks really good.
Yeah.
And that's kind of hard to do.
Yeah. I agree. So, okay, here's my question. In this world, are Pokemon all animals?
Yeah,
like, are they the equivalent to all animals?
So I've had a question about that in the past, and it's weird because everything would suggest yes, except for like in the Pokédex, some of their descriptions are like worm Pokemon or bird Pokemon, and it's like some of them almost make reference to other types of animals. And in the anime specifically, you can see a Pidgey eating a worm. That said, the anime is an adaptation, so you can't necessarily take that for everything it is. So, I mean, I think yes. I think for all intents and purposes, Pokemon are their animals.
So, okay. So saying that, and I agree with that because in the opening, whenever it's, painting in and you're seeing all the different countryside and everything, you see, I don't know the name of the Pokemon. They look like balls.
Yeah, those are a newer one.
Yeah.
I thought they were Tauros, but they're not.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought at first, but they definitely aren't. And they're in like a fence. Yep. So like a farmer has them, for either, I guess, milking them.
You're going to ask if they eat Pokemon.
Yes.
Yes, that's a very common community thing that they talk about.
And that also means everybody in that city would have to be like vegan or vegetarian.
No, it doesn't. I mean, you can have a dog and eat steak.
No, because I thought about this because in the opening statement, they don't allow, they're not supposed to allow like the underground fighting is like illegal, but they don't allow Pokeballs. They said they don't allow Pokemon to be owned. They don't allow, basically Pokemon have the same rights as humans do.
That's in Rhyme City.
That's what I'm talking about.
Which means they could totally import, I mean, you're going to import your food from the countryside anyway. You're not making your food in the city.
Yeah, but I still don't think do we see anybody eating in this movie?
Probably not.
The only thing I saw with food was they had a sign for what's
they meet at a restaurant.
Yeah, but there's no food.
Right.
What's the legendary electric board?
Zapdos?
Yeah. There was a billboard in the back for a Zapdos cereal. I think it was Zapdos or something like that. It was really funny.
Which I have a question about.
Okay.
Do they know that these legendaries exist? Or are they like dragons to us, where they think maybe, or they're fantasy? Because we see legendary Pokemon all over this movie, and all of the versions of them look exactly the same, which is how they look in the games. But if it were not real, then you would think that the different versions would have different looks because there's no real life thing to judge it on. But they're everywhere, which makes it seem like people know that they're real.
All right,
and Pikachu actually uses Arceus's name at one point.
Yeah, so here's my thing. Because I know that they are real, or used to be real, because they even talked about Mew when they were talking about the past ones.
Right.
And they talked about how Mew was the most powerful Pokemon, right? So, my thing is, I think to them, the legendary Pokemon are kind of like dinosaurs to us. They know they existed, and I think there were people around when they were there, so they know what they look like. People have taken pictures or drawn them or something, so they know what they look like. However, I don't think they necessarily think that they're around anymore.
Okay. I guess what kind of threw it off for me was when he had a picture of Rayquaza in his room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's kind of what threw it off. I could totally go with the statues and everything in the guy's office, but the fact that it was in the guy's room. But your explanation actually makes a lot of sense. That's actually kind of how they're portrayed in the games.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I thought a lot about that, actually, because I was like, But yeah, so, okay. The thought of eating
You're having
Pokemon
some
is
real
really
trouble
weird.
discussing this movie.
No, it's just, the thought of eating Pokemon is just, it's weird to me.
It's in the games. People eat Slowpoke tail. They get milk from Milk Tank. And I think there's even other examples in the games where they kind of reference the fact that they eat Pokemon.
It's just crazy because especially like in Vine City, it felt, it really felt like the Pokemon had like the same rights as like humans. Because they worked along with humans and stuff, and they weren't allowed to be owned and all these different things. And then I was thinking about, I was like, wait a second, but I'm pretty sure these are the animals, and I was like, which means they eat them.
Yep.
And so do the Pokemon eat each other? Or do they eat humans?
I imagine they eat each other just like real animals.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep. There's a point in it when everybody comes to this realization, and then you go on the internet and you realize, oh, this has been a thing for 20 years that people have talked about.
Yeah, it's very weird, and I knew that this universe's animals were Pokemon, because especially when it opened up and you see the Pidgeys like flying around, and it was very much like when a family movie opens up and you see like the birds flying around.
Yeah.
But here it was like Pidgey, so I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure there's no regular animals like in this. Okay, I'm off that subject.
Okay.
Sorry.
Next.
That's actually about it.
Okay, so I've got some stuff then. So there's a big point made in this movie that the main character wanted to be a Pokemon trainer, and it didn't work out, and now he doesn't want to. Is it because his mom died on the day he was supposed to become a trainer?
That's exactly what I thought.
Because they sort of allude to that. There's a scene where he's like, today's the most important day of my life. And then he finds out his mom died, but they never actually come out and say that was the day he was going to become a trainer.
I think it's either that, or I also think it's because he just didn't have a good relationship with Pokemon. As you see with Cubone, Pokemon aren't like best with him.
But they talk about him loving Pokemon.
No, I think he loved Pokemon, but his actual relationship, like friendship with them, was not good. And
yeah,
so,
I didn't get that.
Yeah, I mean, that's maybe what I thought, but I mean, I could see it either way.
I feel like the other way makes more sense. I wish they would have spelled it out a little bit more.
Yeah, I wish, this sounds awful. I wish like a Pokemon would have done something to his mom. I kind of would have liked to see that route.
Jacob, this is way too family friendly for that.
No, I mean, I know. I'm just saying, like an accident or something, and like she was walking alongside a Pokemon and they couldn't do anything, even.
But then he might hate Pokemon, and he doesn't hate Pokemon. He just doesn't want to own one.
Okay, fair enough.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought I don't remember maybe they're called Loudred, maybe, but the Pokemon that are in the ring with the speakers, I thought they were super funny. They reminded me a lot of the Rabbids.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought those were great.
Those were fantastic.
Yeah, actually. Did you like the battle sequences in this?
Yeah, I was actually really fond of the battle sequences.
Yeah, I thought they looked really good. I wish we would have gotten like a real one. We get a glimpse of one at the beginning when they're introducing us to everything, and it looks okay. I mean, it's only in the movie for all of 5 seconds, so it doesn't have to look that great. If they go that direction, I hope they flesh it out a little bit more.
Me too.
It was super stylized, which was kind of fun. Even the trainers like had big hair and loud clothing and stuff like they do in the games.
The Pokeballs in this movie look really, really good. Yeah,
I'm a little disappointed they didn't go with the anime route where they are small and then they grow bigger. I feel like that makes more sense from carrying them around, you know? Otherwise, you've got like 6 massive balls you have to carry around.
However, they still could be that way because you don't see him take it out of his bag. You just see him reach in his bag and then turns around and then you see the Pokeball in his hand. So technically, they still could go that route.
They could, and they could say that's a newer model and do it.
Exactly.
I mean, there's ways around it, but I think it's pretty clearly not that way in this movie. I mean, you even see him put it up, and it's still big.
That's true.
Doesn't make a lot of sense. I think the way that they show catching them is also really good. I really like pretty much any of the visuals with the Pokemon. I think they nailed. I think it was really good. And Jacob, we got the theme song not once but twice.
Yes, dude. When Pikachu was singing it, I laughed. That was so funny.
It was really good. Yeah, and then they had it in the newsroom, like that very first time we see the news stuff. It's in the background there, which is really cool. And I don't know if you noticed, he had Pokemon cards on his desk too. So it seems kind of like a hybrid where it is the Pokemon world, but they have been franchised and sold, so they have some of the things that we have in the real world.
Yeah, I could get behind that.
I also really liked how he was from a small town, because it's just like all the games. All the main characters come from a small town, whether it's Pallet Town or I can't remember any of the others.
Nice.
Any of them. They all start in a small town, so that was really cool. I think even the feel and look of the town was really appropriate, even though we're not there for very long, which is a really nice detail that they added. But there is one big question about this movie, and it's the way it ends. His dad is removed from Pikachu, which means he can't talk to Pikachu anymore. Which means this was a one-off movie.
Yep.
Which shocked me. In a world where franchises rule the world, and every movie has to have sequels planned for it before it's even out, they made the decision for this to be standalone, which I thought was incredibly responsible of them, and was a really nice touch.
Yeah, it didn't really hit me until I was walking out of the theater. I was like, wait a second. They can't really, do that again. The only thing that they could do, which would not be good, would be to come up with some type of device where they could communicate. But I don't even like that. Because the thing that made this movie so unique is that they had to have that partnership, because Pikachu could talk to Pokemon and he could talk to humans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why this movie worked, I think, is that it was a unique relationship that had to happen. Without each other, none of this would have happened. And so, yeah, they really can't do that again. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, they could do a sequel and have him go off and become a Pokemon trainer, but it's not a Detective Pikachu movie.
Yeah, and I really like that, though, because I think Detective Pikachu, I think it was a cool story. I liked it. However, I don't think I'd like to see the same type of story again.
Oh, I agree. And I think it's smart. I mean, I'm sure they're going to spin this off into whatever. I mean, they gave themselves an out when they said this was a completely different region, so they can go do whatever. And it'll probably be really cool, and I hope that we see a lot of it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So overall, like I said before, I really liked this movie. if you are a Pokemon fan, you need to go see this movie. If you're not a Pokemon fan, you can give it a miss. You don't have to see it. It really is a kid's movie, but it's a lot of fun if you enjoy the franchise. This movie does give me a lot of hopes for the Gundam movie that they have in development, because that movie is also done by Legendary, which I didn't even realize was working on Detective Pikachu until the opening credits started. But because this was really good, I think that they'll be able to handle Gundam really good as well.
Yeah, I think that Gundam also will do better just because I think people can get behind Gundams a lot easier than they can Pokemon.
Agree. Especially with Pacific Rim.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's something we've seen in movies before, and it's just such a cool idea, and Pokemon is kind of far out there. So I definitely think if this does well, I think the company handled it very well, so I'd be very surprised if the Gundam movie doesn't do well.
Right. And with the success of this movie, as I mentioned at the top, I do still think that manga and anime adaptions are going to continue and take over. And I'm counting this as an anime adaptation because of the anime. I know it's also a video game, but it's a Japanese video game. It's a little bit different.
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like we've been burned so much on.
I mean, you could say that about anything, though.
I mean, you're not wrong. However, the ratio's not good. The more anime movies that they come out with that are like this, the more I'll believe it. However, right now, the ratio's not the best still.
I agree with you.
Good to bad. However, you get 5, maybe 6 more anime movies, going. I mean, I could agree with you.
Yeah.
If all of them have good quality and good stories, and even if they expand beyond basic plots like this movie, I mean, I definitely could see how anime would kind of kick the superheroes out of the leading franchise.
And as I've said before, Netflix has several anime adaptations in development. I think those are really going to be the ones that help push it forward. Just because movies take so long to make. The next anime adaptation we get, who knows what it'll be. Maybe it's Gundam, maybe it's not. But Netflix has got Cowboy Bebop in development. They've got several others. It's not technically an anime, but they're doing Avatar: The Last Airbender, which has the original creators behind it, which is probably going to be good, which is heavily inspired by anime. So you can take the same types of lessons from that and apply it to something else.
So, really quick, Caleb, 3 animes that you would like to see made into a movie.
Ooh. Okay, well, I can tell you one that I don't want in a movie is Naruto.
Same.
I don't think that would work at all. I think that Cowboy Bebop, which is getting one, is a really great one that could be done fairly easily. I'm trying to think. There is technically a live action Rurouni Kenshin, but I haven't seen any of them. I'm not sure. I think you can do most of them. I think the good rule of thumb is stay away from the ones that just aren't going to work. I even think that you could do a Dragon Ball one at this point, because basically between Man of Steel and all the superhero movies, all of the crazy action has already been done on the screen. You just have to really figure out the costumes.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think there's a lot that I think they should. Like, there's not explicitly ones where I'm like, oh, do this one. Like, I think Gurren Lagann, like we've talked about, I think that could be a really good one.
Disagree. Like, too over the top.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, I think what makes it unique you would lose in the translation.
Okay, fair enough. Now, there are ones that I don't think could work. Surprisingly, I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh! Could work. I don't. I can't see it.
It maybe could work as a kid show. Beyond that, no.
Yeah, I don't know. I think One Piece could be cool, but it would be hard to make it good.
Definitely disagree. One Piece is a hard pass because those designs are already ridiculous in animation, and trying to translate them to live action is just not going to work.
I don't think it would be as close to the source material as this Pokemon movie, but I still think it could work.
All right, well, I will leave you with that opinion.
Okay, well, I will leave you with my opinion.
All right, Jacob. Well, that was that, and this is this. It's time for what you've been up to. Have you been up to anything? Because I really haven't.
I have not been up to a thing. I was trying to think. I literally... No video games, no TV. I went to the park the other day. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all right. We've been watching Game of Thrones, but
Hey, whoa. That's what I've been up to. Caleb, what you been up to?
Well, we've been watching Game of Thrones, but tonight me and you are actually starting a D&D group, so that should be a lot of fun. We've got a couple guys and girls together, and so we're going to try that out, see how that goes. But nothing this past week. Hopefully next week I'll have more.
Yeah, I'm hoping that I actually do some stuff this week.
I agree. But in the meantime, please do go check out our good friend Taylor Poole, who did our opening and closing music. You can find him at taylorpoolmusic.com. That's TAYLORPOOLE music.com.
And while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and go over and check out CNC Power Hour on Twitch. They stream Magic the Gathering and some other video games and games on Sundays. I bet their allergies aren't as bad as mine, and they're a great bunch of guys, so go ahead and go check them out.
Also, please check out our website, causewe'renerds.com, where you can find all of our episodes. It's the best way to share the show with friends. You can also find some information about us. Thanks for listening to 'Cause We're Nerds. Stay up to date with all the nerdy news and podcast drops by following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also leave us comments and feedback at causewe'renerds@gmail.com. That's CUZWERENERDS@gmail.com. And, as always, if you enjoy this podcast, we would love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Next week, I'm thinking he's back. As the John Wick trilogy comes to a close in John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. Can the high-octane series go out with a blast? Find out on next week's episode of 'Cause We're Nerds. And, as always, stay nerdy.
So, Caleb, I'm sitting at work today, and I work in a mattress warehouse, as you know, and I was loading the FedEx truck that came. And these FedEx truckers don't know what type of trailer they're going to get for the back of their truck until they get them, and ours is the first stop they make. So the driver comes around and he opens up the back, and it is really, really messy in there. Like, there's stuff all over the place. And he said, "Oh my goodness, this is a really trashy trailer." He said, "Man, they should learn this new invention. It's called a broom. They should learn how to do it." And I said, "A new invention? A broom? Man, I bet that's sweeping the nation."
Wow.
Good, right?
The fact that you're bragging about that.
Good? I thought it was so funny.
Wow. Dad jokes for the win.
I thought it was so good. It was out of nowhere. He laughed. My coworker smiled. My other coworker said, "Wow." I'm pretty sure my other coworker just left.
Yeah,
it was a good time.
About right.
It was a good time.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Getting ready for the clappening? Are you ready for the clappening, Jacob?
I am ready for the clappening of
Half
the
of your fingers are going to disappear. Or
can they all be on my left hand?
Half of all of your fingers are going to disappear.
Or
you're just stuck with nubs.
Half of my body.
I thought you were going to say half of your bottom.
Or half of my bottom. Why would I say half of my bottom? That doesn't even make sense, Caleb.
I mean, it seems like something you would say.
On that note, clapping in 3, 2, 1.